The morning sun barely pierced through the sheer curtains of the historic federal courthouse, casting long shadows along the polished tiles of the grand hallway. The air was thick with tension, the anticipation weighing heavily on everyone present, as though even the walls were bracing for the impending revelation of truth. As the clock struck 8, a young attorney named Lena Grant strode purposefully down the hallway, her sharp navy suit reflecting her confidence. With a firm grip on a sleek portfolio labeled in bold, black letters, State of New York versus Curtis Ellison, Misappropriation of Funds, she maneuvered through the throng of reporters and spectators eager for the day's proceedings. Lena had entered many courthouses before, each an arena for the battle of truth against falsehood, but today felt particularly monumental. This was not merely a case that would determine the fate of a wealthy real estate magnate. It would unveil the systemic corruption that had long plagued the legal landscape. As she approached the courtroom, her heart raced, not from fear, but from the weight of what lay ahead. At the front of the room, presiding over the session, was Judge William Thornton, a stern figure with an unsettling reputation for squashing challenges to his authority. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, Lena took a deep breath and stepped into the room. Immediately, she felt the gazes of the jurors, the spectators, and the duo representing the defense, much like the wolves guarding the entrance to a coveted throne. Ellison sat smugly beside his attorney, whispering insidiously as they eyed Lena, who seemed determined to plow through the impending storm. The whispers from the defense were darkly amused. They had always dismissed the prosecutor's capability to make waves in the subterranean waters of privilege and corruption. The moment she placed her files on the prosecution table, Lena's attention shifted to the back of the room, where a woman with silver hair sat nervously in the gallery. Clad in a simple faded coat, her wrinkled hands trembled as she fidgeted with a piece of paper, caught in a struggle against poverty. A guard had just informed her that she was in the wrong seat. The humiliation radiated from her cheeks. Lena's heart tightened. This was the stark contrast between the lives in the courtroom, a scene replaying the struggles of justice owed to those silenced for far too long. As she positioned herself, the judge's expression shifted from boredom to disdain, his gaze mechanical, as if evaluating her presence as an unnecessary disturbance in his carefully orchestrated condescension. Lena could see through the mask of neutrality he adorned. His privilege cloaked his bias. Today wasn't simply about proving a case. It was a microcosm of the battle between justice and corruption. "Ms. Grant," Judge Thornton finally spoke, his tone curt. "Let's hope you're not here to turn this proceeding into a farce." Though his words were merely a flicker of paternalistic derision, Lena felt the weight of his disdain engulf her. It wasn't just a slight against her professional integrity. It was a broader insult directed at all those who had dared to speak truth to power. The tension in the courtroom rose palpably, every individual present contributing to a symphony of moral decay. As she collected herself, processing the reality that she was not merely up against a single judge, but an entire system baked in the arrogance of privilege, she recalled her own journey, the countless cases where she had faced overwhelming opposition, the moments of doubt when she fought for others who had been told they didn't belong in such spaces. With a deep breath, she steadied herself and opened her briefcase to present the evidence. Meticulously compiled financial documents detailing a pattern of misappropriation by Curtis Ellison. To the untrained eye, they were just numbers. But for Lena, they represented the millions of dollars siphoned from the coffers meant for the disadvantaged. Yet, as she lifted her voice to share her findings, it was met with derision. "Not this again. came the judge's mocking reply, his eyes flitting from the documents to the defense, where quiet laughter echoed in the back row. The very assertion that she was credible enough to present evidence was belittled by the roars of amusement, dismissing her to the role of a mere amateur in their well-rehearsed play, where she was not privy to the script. Your Honor, these records show that the defendant transferred funds beyond authorized limits. They were gathered through due diligence, she asserted, but her voice broke amidst the snickers. No one, not even the jury, seemed interested in a truth that challenged the established order. The laughter echoed around the courtroom, a malicious ripple that promised war against her attempts to unveil the fabric of injustice. Judge Thornton reclined in his chair, snidely engulfing himself in the theatrics, while Lena felt her composure fraying. The wide-eyed woman in the gallery faltered against the brutality of this moment. This was yet another reminder that their struggles for justice could be turned into simple punchlines at the whims of those with power. "Ms. Grant," the judge interjected, his words twisting like a knife, "it seems you intend to mask your lack of skill with a pile of documents. Do try to keep your emotional theatrics at bay." Those words were venomous, targeting not only Lena's case, but her very identity as an attorney, as a woman, as a human being. The air in the courtroom constricted, stifling her voice, yet she remained resolute. Inside, she felt an inferno of rage surging. She wasn't merely fighting a case anymore. She was battling a bog of unearned arrogance that had marginalized her for being who she was. But amidst the storm, Lena recognized something crucial. Power had its weaknesses. The facade was an illusion, and beneath that illusion lay the potential for change. Holding on to that belief, she stood firm, her entire being focused on her purpose. Pulling out another document, she allowed the truth to speak for itself. "This contract," she stated, sliding it onto the projector, "was approved for a redevelopment project worth $20 million. She glanced back at the judge. "And it appears your signature is on record as well." Gasps filled the room, arresting the chatter. Curtis Ellison appeared anything but calm as he shifted in his seat, eyes darting nervously. In truth, Lena was presenting a smoking gun, yet Judge Thornton's response was swift. "Objection! This is irrelevant," he spat, shaking his head defiantly. His repudiation bore no substance, no grounding in the laws he claimed to uphold. Lena stared down the judge, determination igniting within her. The noise ceased, and there was a profound moment of clarity as everyone recognized the escalating tension. No one would succumb any longer to the complacency that had held them for too long. The stench of rot was palpable, and it began to seep into the cracks of decorum. "Your Honor," Lena's voice rang out, unwavering and strong. "The evidence is crucial. This court cannot operate on obfuscation. Justice must prevail." Between the murmurs and the shifting crowds, the tide began to turn. The elderly witness in the gallery caught Lena's eye. Her presence solemnly reinforced Lena's resolve to connect with the victims of this corrupt system. As if frightened by the truth looming in the room, Judge Thornton shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "You're playing a dangerous game, Ms. Grant. Keep this up, and I might have to take measures." The threat reverberated through Lena, yet it only fueled her resolve. "We're already playing a dangerous game," she countered. "What about the millions affected by what you protected? You're not above the law." In that heated exchange, Lena's voice resonated through the gallery. But it was Curtis who broke. "I need protection," he blurted out, a whimper escaping the facade he had upheld for far too long. Lena leaned into that moment, sensing the momentum shift. Start talking, or find yourself next to your co-conspirator, Judge Thornton. Let the world see the breach you created, she demanded, her tone unwavering, like a lioness preparing to unleash the full force of her roar. The proceedings came to a sudden halt, and once again the heart of the matter swelled within the hall. Their laughter turned to silence, a silence ignited by the flames of truth, growing increasingly consuming with every passing second, waiting for that one voice to acknowledge the collapse of their fortress. Lena knew the stakes had only risen, and the players would be forced to either stand down or brace for the storm. The sound of chaos was unshackled when federal marshals stormed into the courtroom after a lengthy pause. Gasps echoed as they marched toward Judge Thornton, a transformation palpable in the air. "You are under arrest," the lead officer announced with gravity. "Obstruction of justice, abuse of power." The hushed murmurs crescendoed around the courtroom. Curtis fidgeted in his seat, a man unmasked, stripped of his previous confidence. The courtroom held its breath. Disbelief washed over everyone present as the weight of arrogance came crashing down around them. In a matter of seconds, Judge Thornton was placed in handcuffs, revealing the hollow nature of his past authority. As he was escorted out, Lena didn't allow herself to smile. Not yet. She couldn't. The battle was still underway. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the curious crowd calmly, her gaze steady. "We've taken a step today, but this is just one battle in a war for justice. The struggle continues. The truth must come to light. We must dismantle a system that allowed this behavior to persist for so long." The audience's collective fury turned to understanding. They had witnessed the dismantling of a corrupt power structure, a small victory that would echo in corridors of institutions across the country. As the cameras resumed their clicking and voices rose in solidarity, one thing stood clear. This wasn't the end, but the beginning. In the weeks following, the atmosphere shifted. Lena found herself carrying the torch for those voiceless souls, those who had lost their faith in a corrupted system, ignited by the torch of truth, expanding to encompass the yearning for justice that thrummed in the hearts of everyday citizens. In the halls of Congress, a place where promises have often faded into whispers of the past, Lena took her stand one more time before the nation. Her speech resonated not just as a tale of triumph, but as an urgent rallying call for those who recognized the need for change. "I stand here today," she declared with unwavering conviction, "to remind us that silence only feeds into corruption. We all share accountability when the gavel of justice is wielded mercilessly in the name of the powerful." The room came alive as people rose to their feet, applauding the courageous cries for change. A change that would reflect their shared struggles. Their collective anger turned to clarity. Outside, a young girl in a modest apartment sat transfixed in front of the screen, her dreams ignited, her future fueled by the courage of voices like Lena's. The embers of justice were beginning to burn brightly, igniting flames of hope for those wondering if the fight was ever worth it. The mass of individuals absorbing the message embraced the realization that one person can indeed make a difference, that together they represent the voice of a generation ready to challenge the status quo. Lena stood proud, knowing that behind this moment lay countless stories of pain, struggle, and hope. The reality of change loomed on the horizon, beyond the corrupt laws, beyond the systems set in stone. Justice was growing. They were ready to march forward together, knowing that if a senator could rise, so could they. If a single voice could ignite a revolution, then countless voices being raised would erupt into an unstoppable force of justice. The wheel of change was set in motion, and the light it cast would guide each and every one of them onward into a brighter, fairer tomorrow.